With Democrats trying to run out the clock on the election, big tech scrambles to amp up their censorship as new documented evidence of voter fraud pops up seemingly every minute. And while Twitter plays whack-a-mole with Trump's digital soldiers, it's becoming increasingly clear that the left has already lost the battle. And if you're wondering about today's stylish new getup, this episode is brought to you by the good folks at Motherfucking War.
Every time who I am, well, how damn, I'm a man. 6 shooters in both my hands. I'm a cold-blooded brother, a real bad mother. Watch out, honey, here I am.
Maybe it's just me, but I am feeling more and more like this election is over, and come January, Donald J. Trump will remain our president. And I think this entire thing has been a setup. And I mentioned the other day that, maybe there's a way to track these ballots that we haven't thought of. And it looks like what I said is coming true. So let's take a look here at this video. This is actually from the InfoWars War Room where, let's just watch it.
This is really a sting operation. Contrary to what everybody else said, Trump knew this was happening. Eric knew this was happening and warned the public. I knew this was happening. However, I could not say anything about it. What happened was we watermarked every ballot with what's called the QFS blockchain encryption code. In other words, we know pretty well where every ballot is, where it went, and who has it. So this is not a stolen election. On the contrary, we reversed the entire game of war along the lines of Sun Tzu, the art of war. And Trump was brilliant and still is brilliant at it. The reason he hasn't been seen, and Alex correctly said, I haven't seen him in several days. Well, in the art of the war, you pull back, allow your enemy to make all the mistakes that they are making, manipulate the situation, expose them, and then come in for the final killing. And that's what's happening now. None of this was unexpected. All of this was expected. All of this is part of the sting operation we're running.
Now, that was from Steve Pieseneck. I don't know how to say his name. I'm probably butchering his name. But he was a former Deputy Secretary of State. He served under 4 administrations in the State Department. This is a guy who knows what he's talking about. He's an intelligence insider. And he has said that this has all been a setup. And, I mean, we've been saying it for years. Donald Trump plays 4D chess, 5D chess. Well, he might have just jumped into 10D chess. Because if this is true, if this plays out, like Steve is saying, this is going to be the most brilliant political move in the history of, well, maybe since the Revolution. Let's just put it that way. Since the Revolution. We can never discount the Revolution. Good old George Washington and the boys. They knew what they were doing. But I think Trump knows exactly what he's doing, too. He is a student of Sun Tzu. I believe he reads The Art of War at least once a year. Maybe it was even a couple times a year. And he wrote his book, The Art of the Deal, based off of what he learned from Sun Tzu. So we know that Trump knows the game. He knows how to play. And if all of us knew that this was coming, you think Trump didn't know this was coming? Trump absolutely knew that this was coming, and he's letting people make their mistakes. He's letting the Democrats screw up, because the more you let them screw up, the more of them you catch. So this is going to be a situation where I don't think we're going to have just a couple fall guys. We are going to have everybody that has been involved in this fake election going down over it. And hopefully, sure, a lot of them will be going to prison. We can't be sending them all to prison for life, unfortunately. But we can make sure that they are barred from ever working in government again. Make sure, just bring them in and stack up a whole bunch of McDonald's applications and see if even they will hire them. Maybe not. That might be aiming a little too high. But we remember this from back in August. Business Insider put this out. As Trump tries to sabotage mail-in voting, the USPS has an idea to defend it against fraud using blockchain. So, of course, Business Insider tried to blame Trump for this. Trump trying to sabotage mail-in voting. No, Trump was Trump was trying to sabotage the Democrats' attempt to sabotage the election using mail-in voting. So I believe Trump was behind this. So using the blockchain, they filed a patent for this, and I believe that is what he is talking about is being implemented into these elections. Now, of course, this is one guy. We're taking his word for it, so hopefully I don't end up with egg on my face. But, you know, he is somebody who does seem to have knowledge of the situation, and I'll just go ahead and trust that for the time being, at least. But the election fraud that we've all known was coming has been absolutely rampant. And there's more and more evidence of it coming out seemingly every minute, like I said in my intro. And we've got this from the Gateway Pundit. Democrat election observer gets kicked out of Philly Convention Center after reporting fraud inside the center. And I was going to show the video of him reporting the fraud, but I'm going to get to that a little bit later because let's just say that video isn't around anymore. So we have this video here. This is after he got kicked out. So let's see here. My computer's lagging a little.
I got a badge right here. I'm observing people, and this gentleman, he's running. He threw me out. America, don't stand for this.
And this guy is a registered Democrat, but he was in there as an observer, and he called out the fraud that he was seeing, and he got kicked out for it. Kicked out. So, next, we have... This is also from the Gateway Pundit. There's going to be a lot of Gateway Pundit here because they've been really on top of publishing all of these voter fraud videos. But, so a ballot count watcher describes at least 130,000 ballots, all for Biden, arriving in 3 vehicles in Detroit in the dead of night. Now, a woman monitoring the ballot counting in Detroit asserted that at least 130 ballots, all for Joe Biden, were brought to the center in 3 vehicles at 4 a.m. And she actually had 5 videos here. I don't know. I think really the first one is going to be the one that's most important.
Detroit at the TCF Center, which is in the heart of Detroit, in the heart of the D. And I had a couple of people reach out to me and say, could you do another Facebook Live and explain where you're at and why you're here? You can see behind me, that giant room behind me is where they are contesting ballots. So something that's very interesting that happened here in Detroit is, you know, I just talked to a guy that's been here all night. They were ready to shut down the precinct. They had counted all the ballots. Everything was good. Everything went smoothly. And then it was at about 4 a.m. that 3 vehicles arrived, a van, a Chrysler 300, and a Ferrari with 130,000 plus ballots. He said he was astonished as they started counting the ballots. He was astonished that every single ballot, like literally 100% of that 130,000 ballots were all Biden ballots that hadn't been delivered to the precinct before the cutoff time for this precinct. So obviously there's, you know, that's just a big irregularity.
Yeah, I'd say that's an irregularity. And, you know, we all were looking at that graph that came out about the spike in votes in both Michigan and Wisconsin and how Trump was up fairly big, and then all of a sudden you just saw this 90-degree turn and it shot straight up for Joe Biden. And we were all sitting there saying, how the hell does this make any sense? Because it doesn't make any sense. And I think what's actually going on is that Trump supporters came out in such large numbers that the Democrats were not expecting how much fraud they were going to have to commit in order to win this. I mean, Joe Biden's got, what, like 80,000 votes, 80 million votes now? He's gotten more votes than Barack Obama in 2008? And you're supposed to expect me to believe that the man who struggled to fill 50 people at his rallies, I mean, there were rallies where there were empty chairs and there were only about 50 chairs set up. And you're going to tell me that he pulled 80 million voters in this country? And you're going to tell me that in Wisconsin, 89% of the population, or the registered voters, all came out to vote? That was that was such an insane thing for them to think that we would believe. I was trying to remember the term because it was 5 standard deviations from the mean. That's what I was trying to say. Yes, that was 5 standard deviations from the mean, which is almost a statistical impossibility. And we're supposed to just accept that? You know, we got some places where there were more people voting than there were registered voters. We got the dead are coming out to vote. Shoot, I forgot to pull it up. I meant to pull up. Fleckus Talks had this video where he was scrolling through, putting in the names of dead people, and it was coming up saying that they voted. And, you know, these were people that were, like, over 100 years old. I showed my video yesterday where they had seven people that were born before 1902. So I guess the only people that are coming out for Biden now are the college professors and the elderly crowd in the 120 to 200 age range. Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely astonishing the amount of fraud that they are committing in order to get away with this. And I don't think they're going to do it. If what Steve Pisanek said is true, again, butchering the name probably, if that's true, and they're able to track all of these ballots, the Democrats are going to be absolutely destroyed when this is all taken to the court system. The Trump team is going to run roughshod over them. And it is going to be glorious to watch. But we have more election fraud. I know, more. This is another one from Project Veritas, which, gotta give a shout out to Project Veritas. They have been absolutely crushing it. With all of they're the only real journalists, the real undercover journalists out there anymore. The only ones out there doing investigative work and doing their damn job. Most of these other journalists out there just go and live on Twitter, and they play this bastardized game of telephone where it's basically telephone meets Orange Man Bad, and they just mash them together for this game that they play, and they're not even real journalists. In fact, they suppress real news more often than they report on it. So, this is from Project Veritas.
Yeah, where can I find a handful of them?
I don't know, man. Hey, I'm almost finished with the boxes today.
All right, brother.
Hey, no problem, man. I'm gonna see if I can get you something like a little nice little handful.
Oh,
what's your number?
You gonna get a handful?
What's your number?
322. You gonna get a handful?
I'll probably put I don't know, maybe. If it's in there, I ain't do it.
And you put some in there for me.
I might, man.
All right, brother.
See what I can do.
A postal worker in Nevada offered our undercover journalist a handful of ballots that was sent to the wrong address. This is another example of USPS voter fraud.
Project Veritas have posted a story in the last couple of hours that alleges some cases of voter fraud in Michigan. Have a look and make up your own mind.
So 8 p.m. Election Day, November 3rd, the Court of Appeals ruled ballots have to be received by that time. And what were you told?
They'll separate today so they can mark them with yesterday's date.
Some of us got some extra ballots and stuff. How many of those you getting lately? People with extra ballots are undeliverable or whatever.
It's been quite a few.
Quite a few?
You know, people are sitting based off their old address. So, yeah, it's been quite a few.
Well, if it wasn't me, though, hypothetically, though, it could be done.
I can't say nothing because I don't know. I'm just a delivery.
All right. But there's a lot of them out there like that, though, right?
Yeah, there are.
Where's the most of them at then? If we were hypothetically...
A handful?
Yeah, where can I find a handful of them?
I don't know, man. Hey, I'm almost finished with the boxes today.
All right, brother.
Hey, no problem, man. I'm gonna see if I can get you something like a little nice little handful.
Oh,
what's
you gonna get a handful?
What's your number?
322. You gonna get a handful?
I'll probably put I don't know, maybe. If it's in there, I ain't do it.
And you put some in there for me.
I might, man.
All right, brother.
See what I can do.
And we all know that the post office, they endorsed Joe Biden. And yet we put them in charge of handling the ballots for this election. How does that make sense? Because to me, not one bit. Doesn't make sense one damn bit. But of course, the Democrats, they have the power apparatuses to get away with all of this. They have so many people in city governments that will turn a blind eye, that will never go up the ladder then after that. They have the media that will say, oh, no, voter fraud isn't real. Voter fraud isn't real. They always say widespread voter fraud. Here's the thing. First of all, what's the definition of widespread? Also, how widespread does it need to be to change an election? Some elections come down to just a few hundred ballots. That could be one person. As we saw from that other Project Veritas video where they caught the lady who was bragging about being able to change 7,000 ballots just on her own. That means in some states, all you need is one or two of her. Next thing you know, if it's in somewhere like Pennsylvania, swing state, could change the entire course of this nation. That is why it doesn't matter whether there is widespread voter fraud. It just matters that there is voter fraud. Otherwise, we will lose all faith in our elections, just like many people have already lost faith in many of the institutions in our culture and government. We just can't trust it anymore. And more instances of voter fraud. So we have Trump's director of Election Day operations posts a video of Philly post office continuing to collect ballots after Election Day. So President Donald Trump's director of Election Day operations has posted a video of a suburban Philadelphia post office continuing to collect ballots long after Election Day. Trump's 2020 EDO director Mike Roman posted the shocking video on Thursday evening, tweeting, "A post office in suburban Philly is still collecting ballots." And so we have this here. This was, wait, when was this? This was, I think this was today, actually. I think this was today. So they're still out there. That's why they paused all of the voting, was so they could bring in the counterfeit ballots. The count was over at whatever time, 2 o'clock in the morning Eastern time on Election Day. The count was over. They just said we're gonna stop the count. Because now we got to go out and find all the ballots because Trump just beat Biden, and he was gonna win a lot of states. That ended up, of course, we go to bed, wake up the next morning, and 138,000 in Michigan and 112,000 in Wisconsin, and all of a sudden Pennsylvania, they got all of these. They already said that we're gonna have to count our mail-in ballots afterwards, and so we got however many we need just sitting aside to beat Trump. And then we've got all this stuff going on in Georgia, North Carolina, Arizona, Nevada. Voter fraud. This to me seems like widespread voter fraud. And if anything, let's just say everything was on the up and up, except for all the procedural things that they've done. That still undermines our faith in the institution of the election. You can't do that. The election is supposed to be decided on election night. And we've known that this was coming. Trump knew it was coming. And that's why I tend to believe Steve in that first video when he says that this was all part of Trump's plan. So when I started this video, that was one of the last things I found as I was gathering information for this. And I was saying, I think this is going to come down to some really, Biden is going to be declared the victor through the media. Biden's going to go out saying that he won. All of the liberals, all of the Democrats, all of the leftists out there, they're going to go in there with full faith that Biden has won the election, and then Trump's going to take it to the courts. Trump's going to end up winning it because all of this voter fraud is going to be found out. And, of course, Trump has appointed, record number of judges, and not to mention 3 of the Supreme Court judges. And all of a sudden, he's going to end up winning. It's going to flip, and then everybody is going to, all the media, all the Democrats, all the left, they're going to use it to delegitimize Trump's victory for the next 4 years, which will allow them to launch all kinds of other investigations, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. Well, if all of this is true, and they're actually able to prove all of the fraudulent votes, I mean, don't get me wrong, the media is still going to try all that business because they're just going to say that it was a lie, that they were fraudulent, or they're going to say that the Supreme Court was bought by Donald Trump. They're going to delegitimize the Supreme Court is what they're then going to try to do. Because that is what the left does. If they can't win in good faith, they delegitimize the people. And so I guarantee you we're going to see that. but they're going to have a much tougher time doing that and doing that successfully if they actually have these trackable ballots and we're able to figure out which ones went to the wrong people, which ones were filled out fraudulently, all of that. And God, it will be glorious. And it'll be a red pill too big for most to swallow. Most people out there are going to have to crush that red pill up and snort it because they're not going to be able to toss that one down the gullet no matter how much water they have by their bedside. So it's going to be glorious. We got more voting fraud. So this is from Chanel Ryan at OAN, and it shows a guy here. I didn't mean to autoplay it, so let me bring this back to the beginning here. Looking around. Is anybody looking? Is anybody looking? No? Nobody's looking? Except the camera? Let me just... Hold on. Let me just grab this pen. I'm just gonna... Let's just... that says Trump. No, let's just... Biden. That's what went on there. Somebody just went on and changed the vote, or maybe they didn't change the vote. Maybe what they did was they added a mark to damage the vote, because as we have seen through this whole Sharpiegate thing, which is, of course, next on my story, damaged ballots are going to be discarded. And, you know, this whole thing came out in Arizona. They were using Sharpies, and I was going to report on it yesterday, but then there was some doubt cast on the story. You know, do Sharpie, you know, the people in Arizona, I think it was Pima County, Arizona, or one of the counties in Arizona was saying, oh, no, you're supposed to use Sharpies because it's darker and it really, you know, they can, it'll register better and this and that. And so they've been trying to say that, no, the Sharpie thing isn't real, but we have more and more evidence coming in because the left is so fucking stupid that they don't realize that their lies can be easily researched and caught, and that Donald Trump has essentially just an army of internet autists out there that dedicate their lives to doing just the fuck that. So we have here, Arizona ballot instructions specify, do not use a Sharpie, may not be tabulated. And so we have that right here, underlined, do not use a Sharpie type pen as it will bleed through. As the corrupt county officials across Arizona scramble to downplay Sharpiegate with the help of a complicit media running cover, it appears as though they are being outsmarted by their own ballot instructions. These people could be outsmarted by a sea slug, I'm pretty sure. So their own voter's guide specifies, do not use a Sharpie type pen as it will bleed through. And even Crowder was talking about this, and I'm not going to play the Crowder thing right now, but because most of it's in here. So, according to Pima County's Tucson FAQ, and I'm just going to read the parts that are bold in here, because the type of ink that is most likely to be recognized by the reader is blue or black ballpoint ink. Other colors of ink may or may not be read by the tabulator depending on the ink formula mixture used by the ink manufacturer. The safest choice is a simple blue or black ink ballpoint pen. Since ballots frequently have issues or candidates printed on both sides of the ballot, you want to be certain that to use a marking device that does not bleed through to the other side, since this could cause the bleed through marking to be interpreted as a vote. We therefore strongly suggest that you do not use felt tip markers such as magic markers or Sharpies. Stray marks of any kind should be kept to a minimum. Once again, the safest choice is standard ink. And oh, but it gets better. In 2012, Pima County issued 5,383 replacement ballots. One of the reasons for disqualified ballots that needed replacing? People using felt-tipped Sharpies. So we have this right here, the very first one up top. Used the Sharpie pen and it bled through the ballot on the other side. So, when we have here, some of the workstations. Set up your workstation, a list of... actually, here, hold on. But what if the poll workers say there is no regular pens floating around? According to their guidelines, multiple people are supposed to have regular ballpoint ink pens along with Sharpies. Set up your workstation, a list of what is needed, and so it has black felt tip pen. And so, black felt tip pen. The election workers are instructed to use Sharpies only when packaging up boxes of envelopes to certify their authenticity. So that's why they have the Sharpies there, is to label things, to label packets of ballots, not to actually use on the ballots themselves. In a video posted on the Pima County YouTube channel just last month, County Recorder F.N. Rodriguez instructs voters use a black or blue ballpoint pen. Let's just watch it. Let's just watch it.
Hi, I'm F.N. Rodriguez, the Pima County Recorder. Here are some tips for filling out your ballot and returning it to us. Educate yourself about the candidates and initiatives. Everyone wants to vote for the president, but there are other federal, state, and local offices in this election. Learn about the ballot initiatives too. Use a black or blue ballpoint pen, no Sharpies, to fill in the ovals next to your candidate's name. It is okay to...
No Sharpies. No Sharpies. Seems like they've got no Sharpies all over their election information literature and videos and all that stuff. So all of a sudden, Sharpies are okay. Sharpies are actually the preferred method, as one official in Arizona tried to tell us. No. Does not appear to be the case. So we've downloaded the video, and it seems like this is not only in Arizona. I saw that there were multiple other states where in Republican areas they were passing out Sharpies to voters. So I think this was coordinated among Democrats nationwide, which would be massive, massive voter fraud if you had all of these votes for Donald Trump, who already, outside of Joe Biden's fraudulent vote total, broke the record for most votes in a presidential election ever. So imagine if we have thousands and thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of additional votes for Donald Trump, hell, maybe millions, that were not tabulated because they were filled out with Sharpies, and then we got millions upon millions of votes for Biden that are completely cooked up and concocted in the halls of the Democratic Party. Seems to me like this might have been the landslide, the 57-state landslide, to quote Barack Obama, all 57 states, the 57-state landslide that I was crossing my fingers for. Oh, we might even need to look into California here. So we had this over in Maricopa County. County Recorder Adrian Fontes drafted a letter to the Board of Supervisors recapping the 2018 elections. He specifically addressed concerns over using Sharpies, that it could lead to machines misreading ballots. He put, for example, if a voter uses a Sharpie, it often bleeds through the paper and shows up as a stray mark on the opposite side of the ballot. It is not an overvote, but the machine may misread it as such. So note that he also mentions they turned the safeties. Okay, so maybe I should read this portion right here. Once I was made aware of this situation, I resumed the more historical practice of using the machine's safety mechanisms to outstack those ballots containing extra marks during counting and have bipartisan central boards research them by hand to determine if the error is actually an overvote or a stray mark. Resuming this practice not only allows us to capture an estimated 50,000 more votes, but it returns us to a nationally recognized best practice. Note that he also mentions that they turned the safeties off. If Sharpies bleeding through could be interpreted as stray marks by the voting machines, and the machines automatically reject stray marks as overvotes, how many Sharpie ballots were rejected and not counted? So nationwide, you would think that if they're doing this on purpose, they're certainly not turning those safeties off. So in the first 2018 elections report, Maricopa County officials included as part of the voter FAQ. So they said, do not use a Sharpie since they tend to bleed through. Okay, I think I already read that. I think they're repeating a little bit here. Finally, though, okay, so this is outdated, but we're seeing here that the Sharpiegate is real. And people have been given these Sharpies in mostly Republican areas to disqualify their ballots. Not good. Not good at all. But at least we have a warrior on our side, which is why I am dressed up in digital warrior gear today. And Donald Trump has been suing all of these states. I already talked about the other day how he has sued Michigan and Georgia, and he's filed for a recount in Wisconsin. But he's now suing Nevada to stop the Vegas area vote count. And one of the things, it's not in this article, so the Trump campaign and Nevada Republicans asked a state judge on Friday to stop counting Las Vegas area mailed ballots as the president and his supporters continue to question the safety and validity of those votes. Now, Trump has also noted that he has seen evidence of thousands of dead people voting. That's another big thing that we've seen, lots of dead people voting, and they said that they've seen evidence of tens of thousands. So I think they have documents of all of the fraud that's going on. Again, I think the Trump team is ready to take this on, and they will win in the courts. And it should be so eye-opening and resounding that the media narrative should just crumble to pieces. At least let's hope. Of course, we know that the media has an absolute stranglehold on a sizable portion of our country's minds. They would absolutely have to have had a stranglehold on the minds of so much of America in order for Joe Biden to even be competitive against Donald Trump. We're talking about a fumbly Joe Biden who could barely draw 50 people to a rally. Meanwhile, Trump draws 57,000, and you want us to believe that this fumbly old man, this child-sniffing motherfucker, was able to pull in 80 million votes? Get fucked. Absolutely not. Anybody out there who believes that Joe Biden has actually pulled all these votes is out of their fucking mind. Absolutely nuts. Absolutely nuts. But again, like I said, Trump is fighting it. But of course, just because Trump fights it doesn't mean that the deep state Democrats don't fight back, because damn sure they are. Even though I think it is going to be in vain. But in Georgia, judge dismisses Trump campaign lawsuit on absentee ballots in Chatham County. So, a Georgia judge on Thursday threw out a lawsuit filed by the state Republican Party and President Trump's campaign that accused officials in Chatham County of mishandling absentee ballots. The lawsuit was the first in what the Georgia GOP claimed would be a dozen targeting counties that are busy counting more than 60,000 outstanding absentee ballots in the battleground states. Chatham County Superior Court Judge James Bass did not have an explanation for why he dismissed the lawsuit. Of course he didn't. But let's go ahead and tack on Judge James Bass to the list of motherfuckers that are going down, because these need to be heard. The fact that these judges are dismissing Donald Trump's election interference claims, that's just dirty. That's dirty. They should at least be heard out. And that's not the only one, though. Here in Michigan, the judge rules against Trump campaign lawsuit over handling of absentee ballots. So a judge ruled against Trump team's legal effort seeking to force the Michigan Secretary of State to direct local election officials to allow Trump campaign observers to watch ballots being opened and counted amid complaints about access to the absentee vote count process. The court said that the facts were not enough to grant emergency relief, in part because it's too late and the vote count is nearly complete in Michigan. Judge Cynthia Stevens of Michigan's Court of Appeals dealt the Trump campaign a defeat during a roughly hour-long Zoom call hearing on Thursday afternoon after President Trump's campaign filed a complaint on Wednesday against Democratic Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson. The plaintiffs were listed as both Donald Trump for president and Eric Ostagren, described as a registered voter in Michigan who was trained as an election challenger and was allegedly excluded from the counting board during the absentee voter ballot review process. Trump's team then filed a petition for court for an immediate injunctive relief from the court. And they denied it. They denied it because, of course, they did. Because that's what's so shocking is how deep the tentacles go, how far the reach of this deep state cabal really is. And you got to wonder, are they blackmailed? Like, who's pulling all these strings? Other than Hillary Clinton, because we all know she's a big part of this. We all know Hillary Clinton's a big part of it. But another name to add to the list, Judge Cynthia Stevens. She is another one that we are going to have to investigate. And we have here, Trump did win a legal battle in Pennsylvania. So that basically he was filing an injunction to halt the, to get his people to be able to sit in and watch what was going on in Philadelphia. So mail-in ballot count halted in Philadelphia as Democrats challenge court order allowing GOP observers. So they've been kicking out all of the GOP observers, and the Trump campaign filed an injunction. They won, and it said basically that you have to have some GOP observers in there, and they actually have filed a counterclaim trying to reverse that decision. And then they've halted the counting until they're hoping they win that. They do not want transparency. They're actively fighting against election transparency. And you're going to tell me that they're not cheating? Fuck yes, they're cheating. They're cheating their asses off. Absolutely absurd. So officials halted mail-in ballot counting in Philadelphia following a court order allowing GOP observers to watch the vote count, a ruling that Democrats are now looking to challenge. So, yeah, they halted the vote count because they knew that the minute they came in there, if they kept counting, A, they were busted, and B, they wouldn't be able to continue the scheme that they're already running. So Philadelphia paused the count around noon Eastern on Thursday after Democrats took an issue with a court ruling allowing Republican watchers to stand 6 feet from those counting the ballots. 2 Democrat officials told NBC that Democrats are taking their complaint to the state Supreme Court. Really? They're going to run it up to the Supreme Court in an effort to prevent election transparency. That's the game, ladies and gentlemen. That is the game. And, I think that at this point, this reeks of desperation. This reeks of absolute desperation. Because I think what's going to happen is if they didn't halt the count, then the GOP would have been able to realize Biden. No Trump. No Trump whatsoever. And they know that the jig would have been up at that point. So the fact that they're actually have the balls or the gall to go to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court and file an injunction against election transparency just goes to show, man, these people are rolling in the mud. They are pure dirt. So, I just lost my mouse. Okay, here it is. Now, let's start talking about the censorship, because big tech is playing their part in all of this as well. As we knew they would, well, they already have been, so we're not surprised that they're even continuing and amping up their efforts. And by the time all is said and done and the dust settles, Jack Dorsey, Mark Zuckerberg, all these cocksuckers in Silicon Valley need to be in prison. They need to be in Guantanamo. They maybe need to be facing capital punishment for treason, because everything that they are doing is trying to throw and rig the election. So Twitter confirms that Trump's account will no longer receive special protections starting January 20th, will be censored for violations. Now, notice that they're assuming that Joe Biden has already won the presidency here. They're already assuming. So Twitter has confirmed that President Donald Trump will no longer receive special protections beginning on January 20th at 12:01 p.m. if he does not win the election. Okay, so I guess they're saying if. The platform has already been censoring the president and his supporters for years, but is now promising even more censorship if he does not fall in line. Because that's what it's all about with these people. Fall in line. Kind of sounds like, Soviet Russia or Communist China. That's what they're bringing here to America. That is exactly what they have already brought here to America. And what people like me and people like other independent content creators out on the internet are fighting so damn hard against. But of course, this video will probably only get a couple hundred views, because if that even, because YouTube has been censoring and suppressing my videos for the longest time now. In fact, the video that I put out yesterday, every time I refreshed the video, the view count went down. How does that make sense? How does that make any damn sense? So, I guess while I'm saying it, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, because we all know it's voices like mine that are first to be taken out back and old yellered by the folks at Big Tech. But also share this video, even if you got to email it to people. Let people know what's going on. This is the information that people need to have. The absolute usurpation of our country by the deep state Democrats that are trying to implement a communist Chinese-style regime here in America. And this is where it all begins. If we lose this, we lose the country. So share this, please. So Twitter claims to have a policy in which they allow tweets from world leaders that would otherwise be censored from normal civilians. On Thursday, they confirmed to Bloomberg News that former leaders do not have the same protections. Now, keep in mind, they never censor the mullahs of Iran when they talk about death to America and burning American flags and how they're gonna kill America and all that stuff. They don't censor that. Oh, but our president, because he stands for liberty and freedom, they're perfectly okay with the mullahs destroying us because that would mean that there is no more of the freedom that we are actually fighting to maintain. But former world leaders aren't protected under that policy. High-profile politicians no longer in office, like former U.S. President Barack Obama, are treated like regular users if they violate Twitter's rules, which prohibit messages that include hate speech or posts that glorify violence or contain certain types of false information like dangerous health-related misinformation. Notice what they did there. They added, like U.S. President Barack Obama. So what they're trying to get people to do, readers to do, is to make that mental connection like, oh, so they're just going to treat Trump like Obama. Fuck no, they aren't. Are you fucking retarded? No, they would never in their wildest dreams ever censor anything that Barack Obama says, but I guarantee you they're going to censor everything that Trump says. They're just going to ban Trump off the platform, I think, if he's not president anymore. So this is a crafty little mental trick that they're trying to pull on us there by using Barack Obama as a reference for Trump will just then be like Barack Obama, and he's not protected. Yeah, but he is protected ideologically. He's protected by the religious cult of leftism. He doesn't have to worry about it. No, not one bit. Now, I had mentioned earlier. Oh, actually, you know what? Let me go ahead through this first. Let's just go ahead and take a look at Donald Trump's Twitter feed. And we're going to see how much our president is being censored. So, right here. 1, 2. Keep scrolling down. 3. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not even counting. But look at all these. Seems like every other tweet that Donald Trump puts out is censored by Twitter. More censored by Twitter. More censored by Twitter. They just keep getting censored. Keep getting censored. Something's got to be done about these people, and they need to pay the steepest of prices. The steepest. And they need to have all of their wealth ripped from them. Excuse me. They need to have their freedoms ripped from them as they are ripping our freedoms from us. And they need to be in a cell until it is decided whether they should even be allowed to keep their American heartbeat. All through the legal system, though, of course. All through the legal process. If it's treason, we know what the punishment for treason is. Now, I'm not saying, I'm just throwing out what, I'm just so pissed off at these people. You know, maybe I don't even fully mean that. Maybe, you know, I don't want people to die. I don't want people to get hurt, this and that. But at the end of the day, if you're gonna try to take down America, if you're gonna use your place of power to rip away the freedoms of our God-given speech, our very first amendment in the Bill of Rights, no, I won't stand for that, and I won't worry too much about the outcome of those who try to do that. So this is the video that I was talking about earlier. Remember that first guy that he got kicked out and he said, I have an ID badge, but they kicked him out from observing? Well, he posted another video earlier and he says, I can't believe what I'm seeing. This is a coup. Registered Democrat and poll watcher details corruption at Philly vote counting center. And the registered Democrat and poll watcher at the Philadelphia Convention Center overseeing ballot counters detailed corruption at the highest levels in the city of Philadelphia. They will not allow us within 30 to 100 feet to supervise the ballots being counted, poll watcher Brian McCafferty said. This is a coup against the President of the United States of America, and I want to call out the mayor of Philadelphia, James Kinney, the Attorney General, Josh Shapiro, who tweeted that there was no way Donald Trump would win President of the United States of America. He continued, "I can't believe what I'm seeing right before my eyes. This has nothing to do with Joe Biden or Donald Trump. This has to do with our democracy, and I will tell you, there is corruption at the highest levels in the city of Philadelphia." And let's see what happens when I try to show you guys this video. Let it load. Let it load. Come on, Twitter, you going to show me this video or not? Load it up. Load it up. Wow, it's... Oh! This tweet violated the Twitter rules. The Twitter rules of calling out goddamn Democrats. So now we also have Steve Bannon's War Room has been banned by YouTube and Twitter at nearly the same time. See what they're doing? They are trying to keep all of this information from getting out. In fact, they're probably going to ban me. So if you haven't already, follow me on BitChute and Rumble, because if I don't have many subscribers on there because they're not as big of platforms. But what am I going to do? You know, it's taken me 6 months to build up like the 1,200 followers that I have on here. So please go follow me over there, because if I get banned off of here, and with the fucking dragon energy I'm trying to bring to this fucking episode, I might get the axes by the time before you even see this. So we'll see. We'll see. But Twitter and YouTube have both censored Steve Bannon's War Room within hours of each other in what appears to be a clear, coordinated effort to silence him. The show was targeted by a censorship campaign from the far-left anti-free speech extremists at Media Matters, as they lost both accounts on Thursday. And Raheem Kassam says this looks permanent. Time to bring War Room 2020 back. And YouTube just took down Steve Bannon's War Room. The show made major waves in the lead-up to the election while they were in possession of a copy of Hunter Biden's hard drive and exposed deep-rooted corruption in the family. So they were already making these enemies. They were already making these enemies. And so Raheem Kassam says the totalitarian left at Media Matters for America, specifically Peltz Madeline, has pushed a campaign to have War Room Pandemic removed from Twitter and YouTube. Okay, we'll just use another service. LOL. So I'll have to find out what service they're going to be on, but you can follow them on Parler and find out where they're going to be launching their videos from here on out. Probably going to be on BitChute, or, you know, who knows? Not for me to call. And Facebook now bans a pro-Trump Stop the Steal page that gained over 350,000 followers since the page was announced just yesterday. So Facebook has banned the pro-Trump Stop the Steal page started by Women for America First on Wednesday to organize support for the honest count of legal votes in the presidential election. Mother Jones's Ollie Breland reported a statement by Facebook. New Facebook spokesperson on shutdown of Stop the Steal group. And the Facebook spokesperson said, "It is in line with the exceptional measures that we are taking during this period of heightened tension. We have removed the group Stop the Steal, which was creating real-world events." Sure, it was creating real-world events, like protests probably. The group was organized out of the delegitimization of the election process, and we saw worrying calls for violence from some members of the group. Yeah, bullshit. I don't believe that they saw violence. And the delegitimization of the election process, that was done by Democrats when they decided to pass out mail-out ballots to fucking anybody and everybody. You get a ballot, you get a ballot, you get a ballot, but this one doesn't have my name. I don't care. Take another ballot. Take another. It's the goddamn Democrats right there. They are the ones who delegitimize this election. And yet those who are speaking up about it, they're the ones that are getting censored and kicked off of big tech. I mean, this is communism, guys. This is it. Live in action on our soil. At least we have Republicans with balls, finally. Hopefully it's not too late. So we have here, breaking, Republican John James is not conceding the Senate race in Michigan. Excuse me. On Tuesday night, Republican Senate candidate John James was winning big in Michigan in the Michigan U.S. Senate race. But Democrats came back with a miraculous surge of votes on Wednesday and were able to take the lead from John James. Of course they were. At like 3 o'clock in the morning. 4 o'clock in the morning. Whenever that 130,000 ballots came in. And he released a statement basically saying that he's not going to concede. So it is good to see that. And it's also good that the DOJ has now told prosecutors that armed federal agents can be sent to extreme ballot counting to examine ballot counting locations to investigate voter fraud, which means motherfuckers is going to get arrested. That's what I like to see. So the Justice Department told prosecutors on Wednesday that armed federal agents can be sent to ballot counting locations to investigate voter fraud, the New York Times reported. Federal law prohibits armed federal agents from being stationed at vote counting centers unless force is determined necessary. The Justice Department believes the law allows armed federal agents to post up at vote counting places after Election Day, the Times reported. According to the New York Times, in an email, senior DOJ official Richard P. Donahue said that the law does not prevent armed federal law enforcement persons from responding to, investigate, or prevent federal crimes at closed polling places or at other locations where votes are being counted. So, looks like we got the feds in on this. They're going to be overseeing some of this. Hopefully they catch some things, make some arrests, bust some heads, crack some domes, all of that, lock people up, and get this vote count right. But I think at the end of the day, the voter fraud is absolutely apparent. It is obvious. It is spelled out. They've been spelling it out all fucking year. That is what COVID lockdowns have been all about, was to create this. They thought that if they did it far enough in advance, back in February, back in March, when they started the lockdowns, that people would say, well, that was way back then. There's no way that has anything to do with the elections. Bullshit. The stakes of this election for the Democrats, for the deep state, is existential. You think they're not going to... You think they wouldn't put the country through 8 months of hell for this? This is their lives. There's going to be a lot of treason charges. Again, guys, this is war. This is information warfare. And we are the digital soldiers, and we will prevail. That's it for this video, guys. If you haven't already, go ahead, hit that like button, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Also, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Parler, Minds, and Pilled.net. Also, in case I do get kicked out, BitChute and Rumble for my videos. I upload them there as well. And if you want to contribute to the channel, which I could certainly use, there are links to my Subscribestar, Patreon, and PayPal down in the description below. And as always, rev your engines, ride hard, and fight like hell.
Every time who I am, well, how